Hi everybody. Today we're talking about books that are about Patriots Day, otherwise known as September 11th, which is how I always think about it. You know, there is nothing about that day that I don't remember. I don't remember September 10th very well, but September 11th, I remember everything about that day. And a lot of you parents out there are probably the same. You can remember where you were. You can remember what you were doing. You can remember how you felt. All of those things. But now we're in this phase where our kids are getting older and they don't know those things. And so we have to teach them about it. So, how do you do that? You can try and explain to them your own experiences. You can show them news clips on YouTube, other places. Not that I necessarily recommend that all the time. Or you can read them some books. There have been a lot of books written about September 11th, a lot of nonfiction, some things that are inspired by true stories, a lot of different things. And so that's what this is for today, is to show you what I found of those. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is America is Under Attack, The Day the Towers Fell by Don Brown. Now, this book talks specifics when it comes to the tragedy. It talks about who caused it. It talks about how it happened. It talks about specific times and places. It talks about all of those things. But what it also talks about is it talks about heroes and first responders, like firefighter brothers Joseph and Kevin Pfeiffer and police chief Anthony Whitaker, and many others. It talks about specific stories that happened inside the towers that maybe we don't think about regularly. It has I wouldn't call them graphic illustrations, but they are very tastefully done illustrations. It's beautiful artwork. Don Brown has done a series of books based off of different historical events. This is one of those. He's a talented writer in making it so that it's clear enough for children to understand, but not graphic enough to scare them. They still can understand the gravity of the situation, and he does treat it with respect and dignity. That being said, I probably would not recommend this book for any child under the age of 8 unless they're very mature, because like I said, it does talk a lot about specifics. It talks about people being trapped and people jumping out and things like that. So it's not for sensitive children, and maybe not even 8, maybe not any younger than 10. But a mature 8-year-old, I think, probably could deal with it. They're going to be learning about it at school, so that's what I would recommend for that one as far as age and maturity goes. Second book for this week is Fireboat, The Heroic Adventures of the John J. Harvey. This book is by Myra Coleman. I have it written down so I make sure that I get it right. It did win the Boston Globe Horn Book Nonfiction Award. It is based off of a true story that happened that day. I like this a lot because it does, talk about what happened, but it talks about it from a different perspective. So if you have children that are not quite ready to hear details about the attack itself, or children that maybe need to hear about it from a more positive perspective, this is the book for that. So this is about a real life fireboat named the John J. Harvey. It was launched in 1931. It did its duty. It fought many, many fires over the course of its career. It was retired in 1995 and sat waiting to be sold for scrap for 5 years until it was purchased in the year 2000 by a group of volunteers, a group of people, and they renovated it. And then when the attack on the World Trade Center happened, they called the first responders and they said, hey, we're here, we're ready to help. And they said, well, you can't fight the fire, but you can help ferry people to safety. So they started to do that. And then after the towers fell, a lot of the fire engines were unable to access water. So they called the John J. Harvey, and they hooked hoses up to the John J. Harvey, and Harvey fought the fire for 4 days after the buildings collapsed. So after that, he and his crew were named as heroes. He won the National Preservation Award, and helped a lot. These do also have illustrations of the attack that happened. They are not as detailed. They're more abstract because that's not the main focus of the book. Like I said, it's probably better for more sensitive children. So maybe 6 would be a good age for this one. Probably reading wise, people would probably say 4 and up, but really age 6, I think, is when this one would be best. That's probably when they're going to be able to understand more of what happened anyway. So that's what I would do. Again, please know your child, know what they can handle, know what they need to know, and what you are prepared to talk to them about. The last book that I'm going to talk about is, not the last book. This is not the last book. This is the third book. I've got 4 for you this week. But the third book that I have to talk about is called The Survivor Tree. It is inspired by a true story. It's by Cheryl Summers Aubin. It is about a Cali pear tree that was originally planted on the World Trade Center Plaza. And it lived there, it was there forever. And during the attack on September 11th, it was completely covered in rubble and debris. And it was covered for like a month until some workers saw a little branch with some leaves peeking out of the rubble, and they found her, and they saved her. And she was ill and she was damaged. She only had a few roots. Most of her branches had been stripped off. Her bark and her body was badly burned and scarred. But they were hopeful that she could be saved. So they sent her to a nursery out of New York, to a special nursery that was going to take care of her and try and help her to heal. In the course of the book, it talks about how the tree thought about positive things from its life, which is why it's inspired, because obviously we don't actually know what the tree felt or what it was thinking or anything like that, right? So what it does is it takes this tree and it uses it kind of as an example of what the American people went through a healing process, as our country has healed and continues to try to heal from the tragedies that happened that day. So it talks about how, she was damaged, she was scared, she was lonely, and all of these different things that lots of us felt at that time, and how remembering the good that had happened in her life and the good she had seen in the world helped her to survive and heal and get better. Eventually, this tree did heal and grew and flourished, and she was eventually moved back to live on the 9/11 Memorial Plaza, and she's known as the 9/11 Survivor Tree. The book is really beautiful, and as far as illustrations go, and it gives a wonderful message of hope and peace and love and optimism in the face of opposition and trial. So this is a book I would recommend for all ages, from little to way like my age, like parents out there that were also in middle school when you experienced this. This book is for you. So is the next one. The next one is not a children's book. Next one is not a children's book. It is actually my first chapter book that I'm going to recommend on this series. It is called 9/10, a September 11th story. It's by Nora Rawley Baskin. This book, the author talks about, in the author's note at the end, how there's the children that are in middle school now, they don't have a concept of what pre-9/11 was like versus now. And this book is meant to remedy that, to give them a glimpse at what it is. So there's a part in the book, a scene in it where the characters are in the airport and they're like at the gate waiting for somebody to get off of their plane. When was the last time that you ever got to do that? Or, there's technology differences, and there are there are examples of ways that people cared for children that would never happen now. So this book is meant to show kind of what the difference is between before 9/11 and after, and the way that the author puts it in the book is how the world changed slowly but then all at once. So what it does is it follows four individual children. They're all about middle school age. It follows Amy, a girl in LA, Will, a boy from Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where Flight 93 went down, Nahid, a Muslim girl from Columbus, Ohio, and obviously how we can understand how that would be an interesting perspective. And also Sebastian, a black boy from Brooklyn who watched the towers fall. The interesting thing about this book is that the events of September 11th do not happen until the end. Almost the entire book is for the 48 hours prior to it happening. And that gives some very interesting perspective. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't remember 9/10 very well, but I remember everything about 9/11. But when I go back and I read this book, I was like, oh yeah, that is right. That is how things were. Oh, that is right. That is how things were. Or when I go back and I think about my childhood, I think about things and I'm like, there's no way that would happen now. Like that's impossible. That's an impossibility. this book I would recommend. There is some light language. There is some, especially in Sebastian's storyline, there is some racial themes. There are some racial themes. Same with Nahid's. Although you get a lot of really good information about the Muslim religion and the culture there. Like I said, I don't think I would recommend this for children that were very young. Probably the youngest I would recommend it for would be a child that's the age of 10 or somebody that is very mature. But I would recommend it for everybody that is over the age of 10. Over the age of 11, certainly. Like I said, if you went through this, it's for you, and it will be meaningful to you to read, even if you don't have kids at all. I tried very hard when I was looking at books and choosing which books I was going to talk about in this video to find ones that would talk not only about what happened, but also about what the effects were, what we gained, and also what we lost. I hope that we never forget what happened that day and never take it lightly. And I hope that we can always remember the people that sacrificed for us, and the people that are still sacrificing for us because of this. And I hope that with these books or without them, we can find ways to share that remembrance with our children. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.